Well, I'd like to especially thank the Clean Life Foundation and Stat Dharma for setting up and doing such a beautiful job hosting us this time in Taiwan. And a special thank you to Dr. Wong and to Dr. Lee and to Dr. Yu for the sharing their wisdom here also this afternoon. Let's have a hand for everyone. Thank you. So we're gathered here together, I think, mainly because we see together how important it is for us to create a world where there's a foundation for peace and freedom and harmony and health. And to celebrate the good news that the more we show kindness to animals and to other human beings and respect for the earth, that our own physical and psychological health improves. And knowing that this vision we have of a world of respect and kindness for animals, a vegetarian and really a plant-based way of eating and living is so necessary now, and that we are making progress every day in overcoming the resistance to these ideas. We can see that all types of health are interconnected, that everything is interrelated, that all living beings are interconnected. For example, as our physical health improves, we also want to also be aware of our psychological health and our spiritual health improving. All of this really depends essentially on the foundation of having a healthy earth, healthy ecosystems and clean air and water and soil and abundance of life. And yet we're all going into a culture where from the time we're little infants, we're compelled to participate in mealtime rituals 3 times a day where we're eating the flesh and secretions of horribly abused animals. And we're taught that this is just necessary and normal for us to do this by people we trust completely, who are well-meaning people. The people we trust as like our parents and relatives and neighbors, our doctors and teachers and so forth. And what we have to understand is that animal-based foods and animal agriculture itself is devastating to all 5 dimensions of health. We're realizing today through scientific research that animal agriculture is devastating to our earth, also to our culture, and also to our physical health. And also, besides harming the outer world, it also harms the inner landscape of our awareness. And so the greatest gift I think we can give to the world is to make an effort to understand the consequences of animal agriculture and to bring our lives into alignment with that understanding. And then to not only change our own lives, but to do the best we can to share these ideas of loving kindness and compassion and respect and sustainability and health with everyone else. Our violence towards animals for food not only harms them, but it boomerangs back and it harms us as well. And I remember it was about 3 years ago when being here and being very inspired by the beautiful example of the Taiwanese people on every level, from the grassroots level and all the work that's being done, for example, the Meatless Monday movement, the increase of vegan restaurants, the Buddhist organizations that are promoting vegan living also. And also being able to have a press conference with some of the people in the government, and we could actually get together and talk about how it would be a good idea to increase the Meatless Mondays, to promote plant-based living for not only for children, but for the entire society. And then since that time, for the last 3 years, the World Peace Diet has increasingly been translated into other languages, and now we're up to 16 languages. We've been able to speak and promote vegan living and compassion for all life in many countries, in Africa, in Western Asia, in Eastern Europe, in Western Europe, all over North America, Australia, New Zealand, and in many countries throughout the world. So I feel very fortunate to be able to have this bigger picture of how the vegan movement is growing and progressing all over the world, and to see that human beings everywhere in all societies are waking up and realizing the importance of eating a plant-based diet for ethical reasons. And sometimes someone will say to me, so, you know, Dr. Cuttle, you've traveled all over the world, you've been to so many different countries, you've been studying this for so many years, for 40 years, and you know, tell me, which country of all the countries in the world is the most vegan country, the country that's leading the way? And I say, well, there's many countries that are really, the vegan movement is growing, like in Germany and Israel, but the #1 country is Taiwan.
Yeah.
Thank you. And so I have to say, even in the United States, people are inspired by the example of the Taiwanese people who are increasing the vegetarian and vegan movement here. And so everything points together to an understanding that when we harm others, we not only harm them, we harm ourselves even more. An awareness that we're all interconnected. And so I'd like to invite us for just a few minutes to turn our attention within and experience a little bit the sense of being connected with others. So I'd like to invite all of us, each one of us, to extend our right hand and to extend our left hand, and to take the hand of one person next to us on each side if we can for a moment. And then let's close our eyes, and just taking a moment and feeling and being aware of the hand that's in our right hand and the precious being whose hand that is, and also the hand that's in our left hand and the precious being who that is. And through that person becoming aware that they're also connected to someone else on each side, and that through holding hands with these two people, we are all connected in this room right now. And also feeling our connection with the earth and all that the earth represents. And also being aware of heaven and all that heaven represents. This is the infinite creative power, the source of all life that dwells also within us.
感激我们生而为人。
For this opportunity to grow in wisdom and compassion and to contribute to the healing of our world. And we give thanks also to all of the efforts that so many other people, our brothers and sisters, are making all over the earth right now. And so we see that this circle here right now that we are is connected through hundreds and thousands and millions of other circles of acquaintances and connections, and that we're, through all of these circles, connected to every human being on this earth. And we know also that we're connected to all of the animals on this earth, the birds and fishes and all living beings. Through our aspiration, we give thanks, knowing that every human being is touched by loving kindness and awareness for all life. What we're talking about here is this connection that we have, and that the more loving kindness and respect and mercy we show to other human beings and to animals and to ecosystems and future generations, the more our own life becomes healthier and happier. So for example, in my own life, I remember I grew up in Concord, Massachusetts, near Boston back in the 1950s. And I remember we ate the usual meals of lots of meat, dairy products, and eggs. And I remember when I was about 7 years old, I was kind of wondering about this, and I said to my mother, so, Mom, the kind of foods we're eating, is this what everybody in the whole world eats, just like us? And my mother said, yes, everybody in the whole world eats like us. So I said, oh, okay, thanks, I was just wondering. And so she left, but then she came back a few minutes later and she said, well, I'm sorry, actually, that's not completely true. She said, there are people who eat differently. They're vegetarians. And I said, so I never heard of that before. What's a vegetarian? And she said, well, don't worry about it. You'll never meet one. She said, I'm a lot older than you are, and I never met one. And then she said, I don't know where they get their protein. So I remember thinking, wow, these vegetarians, maybe they live on another planet where people don't eat protein. Or maybe they're just poor people who can hardly survive. Anyway, my mother was totally right. I never heard the word again. That was the end of it. And actually, I remember when I was about 13 or 14 years old, for a few years in the summer, I would go away every summer with my brother to this camp up in Vermont in the mountains, on the beautiful little hills, and it was connected to this small dairy. And I remember they taught us how to do things on this farm. And for example, they taught us how to catch a chicken, hold her down on this board, and with my left hand, and then with my right hand with my axe to cut her head off. And okay, you see. And so then I learned how to put her through the scalding tank, and then we ate the chickens. And I remember I did not like doing this, but I knew it was the right thing to do. Because at that point, I had gone through 13 years of the most intense indoctrination a human being can possibly go through. Every single day, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I wasn't just eating animal foods, I was also eating all the stories and the attitudes that justify and rationalize eating these animal foods. So I just knew that these animals were put here on this earth for us to eat. They don't have a soul, and if you don't eat them, you'll definitely die within 24 hours of a protein deficiency. But I remember even like a week later, we went down to the farm after this, and there was a dairy cow who wasn't giving enough milk, and she was only 5 years old. And cows would normally live to be 25 years. It's because they're kept pregnant and lactating simultaneously, which breaks the health of any female mammal down very quickly. So I remember also participating in killing this beautiful dairy cow with a gun, just shooting her in the head and cutting her throat and killing her. And so, fortunately, I went away to college, and then right after college, my brother and I decided to leave home and go on a spiritual pilgrimage, and to walk from the eastern part of the United States all the way across to California. So after walking for a few months, we'd gone maybe 2,000 or 3,000 kilometers. We ended up in Tennessee at a community, and it was the largest hippie commune in the world. It was called The Farm, and everybody there, 900 people, were all vegetarians. And nobody was dying of a protein deficiency. And so they actually looked very healthy and vibrant. It was very inspiring to see this community that was working hard to create an example of how we can live on the earth in harmony together. And there were also about 200 children, and they were all vegan from birth, and they were all doing great. So I had this living example of a vibrant, healthy community that was eating a totally plant-based diet. And so I said, why are you vegetarians? And the man I was talking to said, well, there's two main reasons. The first reason is that most of the grain that we're growing, the food we're growing that we could feed to people, we're feeding to animals. And it's very wasteful, and then we kill the animals and eat meat and dairy products while people are starving. And it's these food shortages that are the driving force behind war. And so we want to help create peace in the world, so we're eating lower on the food chain so there's enough food for everyone to eat. So I said, wow, that's a great idea. I wish I had thought of that myself. And then I said, what's the other reason? He said, well, do you know what the animals go through that people are eating? And I said, don't tell me, I don't want to hear about it. And then he said, well, the animals where people are eating, and he very briefly, he just described a few of the things, like the animals that we're eating are confined in these small cages that are so small that they actually go crazy and they're banging their heads against the bars of the cage. And also how their bodies are mutilated in a variety of ways. They're castrated without anesthesia, their beaks are chopped off, their tails are chopped off, their teeth and ears, and then they're hung upside down and their throats are slashed. And I realized this is happening to millions of animals every day. And so for me, it was like he pulled this curtain back, revealing a huge, vast ocean of horrible suffering and bloodshed. And it's something that's going on, and we're all causing it when we take out our wallets and vote for it. And this is why it happens when we vote for meat, dairy products, and eggs. And these animals, cows and pigs and chickens and other animals, are so friendly. They never hurt us. Why are we so horribly punishing and abusing them? And the beautiful thing was that I could see it's completely unnecessary. I had a living example of this community where we never ate any meat or dairy products or eggs. Every day I was eating with these people meals that were made out of grains and vegetables and so forth. And so for me, that was it. From that day, that guy told me about animal agriculture and the suffering of animals. I've never eaten meat in my life since that day 41 years ago. And the great advantage, in a sense, is that also in the last 41 years, I've never once been to a doctor. And Madeline, my wife, is also a long-time vegan and has also not been to a doctor. Actually, even my mother, we got my mother to go vegan maybe, I guess it was about 15 or 18 years ago, and now she's 88 years old and she's still riding a bicycle. She's the only one in her retirement community in Florida who's not taking some pharmaceutical drugs. And so this is the beautiful teaching, is that as we open up our hearts and show kindness for animals and respect them and their health, our own hearts get happier and our health gets better. And this is actually the ancient wisdom teachings that go back to this culture, to the ancient Chinese traditions and the Buddhist and Taoist, Confucian, and other ancient wisdom teachings here. In fact, this community in Tennessee, the farm, was vegetarian because they were practicing Buddhist meditation, and so that's actually the reason I became a vegetarian back then, was because of the Chinese culture coming through the generations. And so actually a little later, I got off to California. I was living in meditation centers, and then in 1984, I decided to shave my head and live as a Zen Buddhist monk in Korea. And so for the second time in my life, I found myself in a community that was vegan. But this community, they had been living this way, not just for a few years, but for over 750 years. There was no meat, no dairy, no eggs, no wool, silk, or leather. The whole idea was to live our lives not only meditating a lot, but also to be kind and loving to other living beings. And so I realized that what veganism actually is not a new idea. It's actually an ancient wisdom tradition with deep roots in China. That there have been wise people that have understood through their inner wisdom that if we're really serious about spiritual awakening and also about creating cultural harmony, then the foundation for that is a plant-based way of eating that is sustainable and respectful of all life. And so I'm deeply grateful every day, really, for this opportunity to help share this message, understanding that it brings together the ancient wisdom traditions and also modern science and also everything we understand about living cooperatively together.